Lights, camera, podcast. This is the Silver Screen Sessions podcast with your host, Pete. Your fortnightly dose of movie talk, reviews, and all things film. From blockbusters to hidden gems, Pete will be breaking down what's worth watching, what's overrated, and everything in between. So grab your popcorn, take your seats, and let's roll the reel.
Welcome back to the Silver Screen Sessions podcast, the show where we step back into the movies that made us cheer, think, and sometimes ugly cry into our popcorn. I'm your host, Pete, and today we're going the distance with one of the most iconic and unapologetically 80s films ever made, Rocky IV from 1985. It's a movie about boxing, yes, but it's also a story about grief, redemption, and the Cold War, told through slow-motion punches, sweat, snow, and synth. This isn't just a sports film, it's a time capsule. It's America, ambition, and adrenaline in cinematic form. So lace up your gloves, crank up the training montage, and let's step into the ring with Rocky IV, the heart of a fighter. So the story, when the bell rings. Released in 1985, Rocky IV picks up after the events of Rocky III. Our hero, Rocky Balboa, is now living the good life. Wealth, fame, family, and even a talking robot butler. He's on top of the world, but like any great fighter, the real test isn't staying on top. It's what happens when you fall. Enter Ivan Drago, played by Dolph Lundgren. A cold, unflinching Soviet machine built for one thing, dominance. When Drago comes to America, he's more than just a challenger. He's a political statement. He represents the Soviet ideal of engineered perfection, precision, and control. Rocky's old rival turned friend Apollo Creed, played by Carl Weathers, sees Drago's arrival as a challenge, not just to boxing, but to national pride. He steps into the ring for an exhibition match that's meant to be symbolic, but ends in tragedy. Drago kills Apollo in the ring. No remorse, no hesitation, just a chilling line. If he dies, he dies. That's the moment everything changes. Rocky blames himself, questions his own strength, and he makes a decision that defines the rest of the film. He's going to Russia. Not for fame, not for money, but for honour. The training sequences that follow are legendary. Drago trains in a sterile lab surrounded by scientists, needles, and machines. Rocky, by contrast, trains in the wilderness, running through snow, chopping trees, and lifting ox carts like a man possessed. It's man versus machine, grit versus power, the beating heart versus the perfect system. The film builds to that unforgettable final match, set in Moscow, in front of a hostile Soviet crowd, and somehow, by sheer will and spirit, Rocky turns his enemies into believers. It's the kind of end that's both absurd and beautiful, because beneath the Cold War propaganda, there's something universal: hope. Let's talk about the cast, because Rocky IV wouldn't have half the punch it does without this lineup. Sylvester Stallone was at his peak here, not just physically, but creatively. He wrote, directed, and starred in the film, creating something that's both personal and mythic. Rocky's not just a boxer, he's a symbol of perseverance, a man who never quits, even when the world tells him to. After Apollo's death, Stallone gives one of his most emotional performances in the entire franchise. You see a man broken, angry, but also still full of compassion. That's what separates Rocky from everyone else. Carl Weathers as Apollo Creed delivers an incredible farewell performance. His character embodies the pride and charisma of a fighter who refuses to fade quietly. His entrance, James Brown blasting Living in America, fireworks, dancers. It's both hilarious and heartbreaking when you know what's coming. Then there's Dolph Lundgren. Believe it or not, this was his first major role. He says maybe 40 words in the entire movie, but every second he's on screen, he's terrifying. His stoic stare, robotic posture, and sheer physical presence made Drago an instant icon. And it's worth noting, Lundgren was actually a chemical engineering student and a karate champion before acting. He didn't just look like a machine, he trained like one too. Talia Shire as Adrian brings emotional grounding. Her confrontation with Rocky, "You can't win," one of the franchise's most powerful moments. It's not doubt, it's fear. She's terrified of losing him like they lost Apollo. And then there's Burt Young as Polly, the loyal, grumpy comic relief. His emotional speech before you fight in Russia is genuinely moving. You're all heart, Rock. It's simple, but it says something about what we root for Rocky. So behind the gloves, production, danger and trivia. So behind the scenes, Rocky IV is almost as dramatic as the film itself. Stallone wanted realism, and he got it. He told Dolph Lundgren to just go for it during filming. Big mistake. One of Drago's punches hit Stallone so hard it caused his heart to swell against his chest wall. He was rushed to intensive care for several days. That's commitment. Or madness, depending on how you see it. The production itself was a global operation. Though set partly in Russia, most of the film was shot in Wyoming and Vancouver. The freezing Siberian training scenes, real snow, real temperatures, real pain. So a few fun facts. The training montage clocks in at 8 minutes, longer than some short films. Stallone's brother Frank Stallone sings on the soundtrack. The robot was a real invention made by a company called International Robotics, and Stallone added it because his son loved it. The movie made over $300 million worldwide, becoming the highest grossing sports film of its time. In 2021, Stallone released Rocky IV, Rocky vs. Drago, the ultimate director's cut, re-editing the film to add emotional scenes and remove the infamous robot. It's tighter, darker, and more character-driven, and well worth watching if you want to see how Stallone reimagined his own legacy. So the soundtrack and style when music meets muscle. So let's be real, Rocky IV isn't just a movie, it's a music video with feelings. The soundtrack is the beating pulse of this film. Hearts on Fire, Burning Heart, and Eye of the Tiger. These aren't just songs, they're cinematic steroids. Composed by Vince DiCola, the score replaced Bill Conti's more orchestral sound from the first films. It's synth-heavy, electric and perfectly suited to the film's tone. Part called war epic, part motivational workout tape. Every montage is edited like a music video. Quick cuts, freeze frames, silhouettes against sunsets. It's operatic. One of the most striking moments is the no easy way out sequence. Rocky driving through the city, haunted by memories of Apollo. It's not just a recap, it's a grief montage. You can feel him processing loss in the only way he knows how, through motion, through rhythm, through training. Stallone understood the emotional language of music. He knew that in the film like this, some lyrics can say what dialogue can't. So we're now going to the themes: Cold War, heart, humanity. On the surface, Rocky IV is propaganda wrapped in spandex, USA versus the USSR. But dig deeper and it's actually about humanity. The Soviet Union and the US were locked in ideological combat in 1985 and Stallone used that tension as a backdrop. Drago represents the machine, engineered, emotionless, product of the system. Rocky represents the individual, heart, soul and belief. But what's more powerful is that by the end, the film softens. The crowd that booed Rocky begins to cheer him. Drago turns on his own handlers, realising he's being used. It's a surprisingly hopeful message. Even in the middle of the Cold War, Stallone dares to say, maybe, just maybe, we're not so different. And then comes that speech. You know the one? Rocky, bruised and blooded, turns to the Soviet crowd and says, if I can change, and you can change, everybody can change. Is it corny? Absolutely. Does it work? Totally. Because beneath all the flag waving and synth, it's about empathy, the courage to see your enemy as human. So the legacy, how Rocky IV changed pop culture. It's impossible to overstate how much Rocky IV shaped pop culture. It turned training montages into an art form. It inspired generations of athletes. And it gave us a villain so iconic, he was later revisited in Creed II. The Cold War backdrop makes it a time capsule, a reminder of how cinema once served as cultural diplomacy. It's also one of those rare films that crosses language barriers. Around the world, people didn't just see it as an American triumph, they saw it as a story about persistence. Even NASA astronauts reportedly brought Rocky IV soundtracks to space workouts, and that is not a joke. And to this day, whether you're running upstairs, lifting weights, or facing your own metaphorical Drago, this film still fires people up. So, how does it hold up today? It's over the top, it's drenched in synth, it's half montage, half muscle, and yet it works. It's emotional, rousing, and weirdly inspiring. Every punch still lands, every training scene still pumps adrenaline, and every note of that soundtrack still makes you want to run through a wall. Sure, it's not high art, but it's heart art. So my rating, 9 out of 10. Not perfect, but pure. A movie that bleeds sincerity, sweat, and optimism. A reminder that sometimes, even when the odds are stacked against you, all you need is a belief, and maybe a snow-covered mountain to scream from. So that's Rocky IV, The Heart of a Fighter. A movie that proves the biggest opponent isn't the one standing across from you, it's the one staring back in the mirror. It's about grief, growth, and the guts to get back up when life knocks you down. Thank you so much for joining me on the Silver Screen Sessions podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to hit follow, leave a review, and share it with movie lovers and underdogs in your life. Next time, we'll switch gears from boxing gloves to blasters as we revisit a cult sci-fi film that never got the love it deserved, Wing Commander. Until then, keep your gloves high, your heart on fire, and remember, it's not about how hard you hit, it's about how hard you can get hit and keep moving forward.